Hello? Can anyone around here speak basketball?
There it is.
It's the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball Podcast.
We're going back to back. Welcome to the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Freddie Rivas, and who, sir, are you?
I'm your producer, Matt Duncan. Freddie, how are you doing in this day and age?
I am doing okay. Always super excited for podcast day.
Big day, podcast day.
Sorry?
Big day, podcast day.
It's a big day. It's always a big day. But how are you doing, man?
Well, I think, I'm enjoying the indoors as much as I can. I wanted to go for a walk yesterday. I didn't, but that's on the docket for today. I'm going to go for a walk around the block or something like that.
I like it.
Won't be going to any parks, though. Don't want to get dinged with a $750 fine.
Hey, they can go up to 5,000. They just
5,000.
Shock the monkey.
Holy cow!
Sorry, I don't know what the shock the monkey thing is.
Yeah.
Apologies there. Okay, let's give people the goods. If they want to find this podcast, Matt, how are they going to find it? How are they going to tell people? Oh, you can go find it here.
Like our main hub that you can go to for links is dunkspodcast.com. We've got all our links on the right that you can click on for iTunes and Stitcher and Player FM and whatever podcatcher you really like. We've even got Pocket Casts on there. If you're one of them fancy folk, use Pocket Casts. I said Player FM, right? Did I say Player FM?
You did now, and I'm happy you did.
Okay, I'm glad I did. And we do put them up on YouTube. Now, I know nobody likes to listen to podcasts on the YouTube. YouTube's for funny little videos, but there is an option there for you too if you'd like to watch with a fun sound bar playing during the episode. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Of course, like rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Do that
but
stuff.
Matt, if people are like, oh man, I need something to put on my head.
Yeah.
During this virus time, what do you think? What do you think I should do?
Well, here's the thing. You're inside a lot right now. Your head's going to get a little softer. It's going to get a little more sensitive. So when you go outside, it doesn't matter if it's 30 degrees outside. You're going to feel cold. You're going to need a Confederacy of Dunks too.
I like it. I like the soft head lead up. That was good. That was good. Nice soft head.
Yeah.
And if people want to go like beyond and they really want to support us and like help this podcast grow.
Yeah.
Where and how can they do that?
You can click on our website. You can click on the link for Patreon. It's also there, but you can also go to patreon.com/dunkspodcast if you want to support the podcast and help, us, financially be able to expand and do other things for you. And you get some exclusive content as well as episodes early. And you know what? If you pay into the right tier, you might get a little Mark's Rosé hot sauce courtesy of Freddie.
That's right. It's hot, and I got some left. So
you got some left?
Yeah. Guys, sign up to the tier, baby. But Matt, I think it's time to intro this episode.
Okay.
And I think we decided to do something. We're trying to keep it positive around here. A lot of rough news.
Now, there's no pulse to the NBA, but we are providing that pulse. We are the artificial heart right now.
Oh, I like that, and you're overinflating our importance. That's great. So I thought it'd be fun to do favorite Raptors.
Yeah.
So we just I asked some friends of the pod to tell me who their favorite Raptor was, and we talked about it a little bit, but I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this, Matt. I think it's odd, but I don't know. I feel like it's like maybe I'm being too recent here, but my favorite Raptor is Pascal Siakam.
I mean, how can you not love Pascal Siakam? And you're still at the beginning of his story too.
I know. So we'll see as the dust settles, because things can change. But Who's your favorite Raptor?
Mine, I would say, is DeMar DeRozan. I think that is he. You know, like when I started to really get into the Raps with this podcast, he was the big star player, and just kind of, you know, I think especially with Toronto sports, it's like you if you get a player that will play in this market and just like give their whole heart like he did, it's like a really special thing. You know,
You're damn right it is.
and you know, we don't get Kawhi without DeMar. You know, it's like he was a very important part of what led up to that championship, in my opinion.
For sure. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we intro the folks individually. So should we just hop right to it?
Okay.
Okay, I am here with guest number one. He's about to tell us who his all-time favorite Raptor is. Give it up at home as loud as you can for Jonathan Yam. What's up, buddy?
Thanks for having me.
No worries. I definitely made it seem like music was about to bust out. So that's on me.
Okay.
But you know, the way we're doing
I know the
these,
drill.
yeah, you know the drill. You know the drill. Yeah, let's just hop right to it. I started the 12-minute timer. Who's your all-time favorite Raptor?
So I would say this guy is not my number one all-time favorite Raptor, but he was definitely the first one,
Okay,
and that's Damon
that's fair.
Stoudemire.
Damon Stoudemire.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's like a perfect start to the pod, and also like a perfect first love. I always have to admit I was definitely like a VC era Raptors fan. Like I was just a bit too little to be like obsessed with the Raptors. Like I love the Raptors. I love Damon Stoudemire. I love Mighty Mouse. But when I really started becoming bonkers was Vince Carter. So were you already a basketball fan before? Because I know you're a couple years older than me, but not too much. Like, were you like when the Raptors first came to Toronto? Were you like a fan of another team and then had to be like, oh, this is my team now?
Yeah, I was already watching basketball a bit before that, so I guess I was almost done high school by the time the Raptors started.
Right.
So by that point in time, I think I was more interested in some of the West teams. So I think at that time, like my favorite teams were like the Supersonics and the Suns, and the Trailblazers. Like I gravitated toward those guys. And then once we had a team that we could actually follow, on a regular basis, then it was just like full time, just following the Raptors. Because up
Totally.
until then, you could only watch like maybe 2 or 3 games a week on TV
Man.
around the league. So yeah, this is obviously before League Pass, before like a lot more cable channels were available. So yeah, so once the Raptors came, it was just like totally, behind them. And so, there was a lot of hype around the team, obviously, when they first started, because they kind of, started with a bang. Like they hired Isaiah Thomas to be the general manager
For sure.
and got some other kind of big name people involved, like John Saunders, they got from ESPN to be the play-by-play guy. So
Right.
they were-
And so much pressure on that first pick.
yeah, but it was really
they had to
interesting
hit it.
because I remember, I don't know if you remember the draft, but everybody thought that they were going to take Ed O'Bannon. That's who they wanted the Raptors to choose, because he was like, I think he was at UCLA. They did really well that year in the tournament, and I think he may have won like some kind of Player of the Year award in his conference. So everyone thought that's the guy that they should take, and they actually booed Isaiah when he made the pick. But when you think about it, like this is sort of, I think he tried to pick somebody in his own mold. So like an undersized point guard.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of the perfect underdog for a completely new team, playing in this weird stadium that wasn't built for basketball. So it was a really interesting start, I thought. And I think for me, as a kid, I grew up like I was always undersized. I was always smaller than everybody else. So
Right.
I
So
think
you
something really
kind of
relatable-
identified.
Yeah, there was something really relatable about Damon, and just like all the kind of, again, because it was like a new team, they had all this marketing around him. Like, they had the Mighty Mouse thing. I guess he had the Mighty Mouse tattoo already, and that was his nickname. But they kind of, like, Nike built like a whole marketing campaign around him, and they used the Mighty Mouse theme song and the actual cartoon in the ad, and it was exciting.
Totally, yeah, and to have kind of that type of inertia just like burst out of the gate. Like, I know the Raptors weren't winning, but to at least have like a really genuinely exciting player to kind of fixate on. So, but like, when in your early days watching the Raptors and watching Stoudemire, were you kind of like starting to build the narrative of like, okay, this is the guy that can he can be a superstar, he can be an Isaiah Thomas, we can be as good as anyone else? Or was it kind of maybe that's a bit like early days because you were just enjoying watching a talented player?
I had pretty low expectations because I guess having seen, like, it was like the mid-90s, right? So it was just after a bunch of other teams had just entered the league, and none of them were very good, other than maybe Charlotte. Like, they got good right away. Orlando got really good right away because they had like really good picks. But otherwise, you can kind of see how some of them were just like, they're just bad for a bunch of years. And I think when the Raptors and the Grizzlies came into the league, that was around the first time where they said, you guys can't get the first pick overall. And so I think Damon was actually picked something like 7th or 8th overall. And
really?
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought he was 2nd overall.
No, he wasn't that high. I don't think so.
Wow.
And then the next year,
that's wild.
And the next season, we were actually supposed to get the first overall pick, but we weren't allowed to. So we ended up with the 2nd pick, I think. That was the Iverson draft.
So the screw job on Toronto started from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah. They wanted us to have a team, but they always hated us.
So, I mean, yeah, I feel like with Damon, I got to ask you a couple just like stock questions. Like, do you have a favorite like pet Damon play? Just fast break or?
So I think with him, watching him play was really exciting. And I think that was the thing that kind of got me past just the fact that we were going to be a terrible team, because there was always, like, watching the games, there was always going to be some point in time where he was going to try and take over. And sometimes it would work, and sometimes he just couldn't because he just didn't have the guys around him to, they just weren't good enough. But
yeah.
tried anyway, and it was great. And I think he was probably one of the first point guards where I saw him use the floater a lot back then. Like, I don't think it was really that common to play with point guards, but because he was undersized, this was something he just had to kind of rely on a lot, even if he was being guarded by other point guards. So I saw him use that a lot more, and I think because he was a left-handed shooter, it just looked different. So I think those were the things I really noticed about him, was just like, he always just tried to stay in the game no matter what, and tried to put the team on his back. And so that was always exciting because, like, I mean, even if you knew that they were going to lose, you just wanted to see, like, at least let's see how this guy's going to go down.
Who's your favorite player comp for Damon Stoudemire right now?
Currently in the league?
I'll say this: Damon Stoudemire as a Raptor, because I think that's what we're talking about. So, like, those years 22, 23, 24, that's like the super speedy Damon. I mean, he kind of he got like serious injuries throughout his career, and he obviously played with a bunch of other teams. But yeah, we're talking about the Raptors, Mighty Mouse Damon. So who do you think is the best comparison in the NBA for Damon right now?
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of who's like an underguard or undersized guard. I mean, even on some level, I mean, this is not really a like for like comparison, but like on some level, I see a lot of parallels between him and Kyle Lowry.
I was thinking Kyle or Fred, but
yeah, they're both of them are more skilled defenders than Damon was. I mean, he was still like, he wasn't. I don't know that he was especially strong for his size, in a way that you see kind of the defensive toughness that Kyle and Fred both bring, but just the tenacity.
What about What about like obviously he was better, but like MVP Derrick Rose. But I guess Derrick Rose is like 6'3", so that's not really
much
good.
bigger, he was.
He's powerful. Like all these guys, like West, like all these big point guards who are really aggressive. It's kind of It's not a good comp.
I would say he kind of resembled TJ Ford, but with slightly better shooting and more scoring ability. Just, I guess, because they were both kind of small guards.
That's pretty good. I feel like as soon as we're done this conversation, I'm gonna have the perfect comp, and the opportunity is gonna just have like totally passed me by. But more Damon, I think we got to hit the biggest thing. What were your feelings around him leaving? Like, obviously, this, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like was the domino, in the trend of superstars in some form or another rejecting Toronto as a place to play.
Yeah.
What were your feelings at the time? How have they evolved?
Yeah, I mean, obviously didn't want him to be traded. The circumstances around it were a little bit different from like when you compare guys leaving through free agency, because there was sort of this weird ownership situation where I guess the original owners, there was the original owners who were there, but then I think Isaiah tried to make this kind of power play and do like sort of a hostile takeover of ownership. Like he was trying to get some investors involved and try and kind of buy them out. But
I'm liking this angle.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama at the time. I remember this, so it didn't work. So then that's kind of why Isaiah quit. That's why he left the Raptors.
Oh, okay. I'm liking how this is tied together.
Yeah, and so I think what happened was because Stoudemire was drafted by Isaiah,
right?
He was, basically, handpicked as their first draft pick.
Yeah, it's his guy. Yeah.
With that situation, and I think he even spoke out about it in the media, and so eventually it led to him requesting a trade, and they ended up trading him to Portland. But it's crazy when you think about I know there was an article that came out a few years ago. I can't remember, it was in the Ringer or maybe even Grantland, about like trade trees. So basically the idea is like you trade a player and that leads to other players being traded, and then like in there somewhere you can just trace it for years and years. And that one was, I think, one of the longest ones that the Raptors had, because they traded him to Portland, but they got back Alvin Williams, which ended up being another one of my favorite players. And they also got Kenny Anderson, but Kenny Anderson didn't want to play for the Raptors. So they ended up flipping him for a couple of draft picks, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm actually looking at...
I think this is when they got Chauncey Billups as well.
Well, yeah, so they got 2 first-round draft picks and a second-round draft pick. So that I could see how the tree would really just be like rooted all over the place.
Because then one of those draft picks turned into Morris Peterson. The other one turned into Jonathan Bender, who they traded to Indiana to get Antonio Davis. And Antonio Davis got traded to the Bulls. I think we got Jalen and Daniel Marshall. And then we traded Jalen to get Antonio Davis back later on. So it was like, it stretched out a really long time.
Wow, it's actually kind of perfect. We have 30 seconds left. And we started with Damon, and it kind of like he's a really interesting figure for Raptors fans, because he kind of like set into motion so many things, and it's cool hearing about the tree and the ties with Isaiah Thomas. And sorry, you got one more thing?
But going back to what you said about, becoming a VC fan when he came to the Raptors, like that's sort of a big what if for me, is like, what would have happened to the Raptors if we had never traded Stoudemire? Like, would we have still been good, or would we have been bad? Like, or would we have gotten better?
VC, VC and Damon could be something.
And Tracy.
I mean, I guess at that time too, it could have been like, hey, and Camby.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just leave on this because we're out of time. Give me your all-time favorite just Damon memory, like of any kind. Maybe it's a big game. Maybe it's like one of the first games you went to. Maybe it's just like something he did or said.
I think one of my favorites has to be the one where they beat the 72-win Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, because I guess everyone was defending in that game, but he must have been the guy who, he probably had the most points for us.
I think so. I have to look it up, but because I don't remember it clearly, but I just remember he obviously was a big part of that. I think they only played like 7 or 8 guys off like in the rotation that game.
I love it. Just like him and would it have been Doug Christie at that time? No,
he and Christie. I think they would have been in the backcourt.
That's awesome. That's a pretty nasty defense. I know Damon's not as strong as Christie, but still pretty fast, pretty rangy. Yeah. Coming into a windy Sky Dome. Jordan was probably partying, drinking the night before, and it's like, yeah, whatever, Toronto.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I'm sure. On that note, I think that about wraps it up for this conversation. But Jonathan, do you want to say anything to the world in this time, or to folks who maybe don't know a lot about Damon Stoudemire? You can combine the two if you like.
No, I think I would say I appreciate that Kyle was wearing a Stoudemire jersey at the parade.
Yes.
Kind of like a link to the past. It was really interesting that he did that. Otherwise, I just want to say I miss basketball. I want it to come back soon so that we can complete our back-to-back. That's about it, I think.
I know. Well, we got to go back-to-back. It's got to happen. Jonathan, be well, be safe. Take care of your neighbors, and we'll talk soon. Okay, guest number 2. I'm very, very excited to have him on the podcast. It's his first time being on the Confederacy of Dunks basketball podcast. We are in a troupe together, in an improv group called Featured Players for a venue called Bad Dog Theater. And we meet every Saturday, and we put on a show together, us and a group of, I think there's 14 of us, and it's amazing. It's fun. Obviously, we're not doing that right now, so it's super excited to hear his voice. I'm super excited to hear his voice and hear who his favorite Raptor is. So give it up at home as loud as you can. Best intro ever, by the way, for Randl Morales.
Yeah, Freddie, how's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. I keep saying the guest's name like music's about to bust out, and I feel like I gotta slide in a bit more chill. I'm gonna see if I can hit for guest number 3. I'm gonna see if I can just like casually slide in.
Or maybe instead of going upward tone, you can do like how the Raptors announcers do it, where it goes like up and then kind of down, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like
now
Lowry, something like that.
Okay, you have to give me a demo with at least 2 more players now. Give me Serge Ibaka.
Wait a second. So with Serge Ibaka, I think it goes upward.
Oh, it actually did, because it goes Ibaka.
Yeah. There are some exceptions. Like I know Dwayne Wade goes high. Like I know it goes Dwayne Wade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen.
So I don't know what the rules are, but
yeah, I have just led us down an incorrect path. That's what's up. So let's get to it. Who's your favorite Raptor?
All right. So 2012-2013 Raptor season, in my opinion, is the beginning of the upward trajectory towards where we are now, which is the championship. And even though it was kind of a mediocre season, like we didn't make the playoffs and stuff like that, I thought they did key moves that were subtle but are important down the line. Mm-hmm. They traded for Lowry. We extended DeRozan's contract.
I don't think Lowry was that important. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, I'm just being a total idiot. Yeah, okay.
And then we also got Ross, and we finally signed my guy, Jonas Valanciunas. Welcome to Lithuania.
Jonas.
That's right.
Wait. Okay. We have to at least do it with his name. It would be like Jonas Valanciunas.
Jonas
Valanciunas. So yeah, he does fade away with the Nis.
Yeah.
He rides the tune hard, and then he drops down with the Nis.
Okay, I think I figured out what the formula is. If your name is a 2-syllable full name, it ends it in the high note. But if you're more than that, it has to naturally arc down.
That checks out.
Freddie Rivas, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Anyways, back to JV. So he kind of represents the beginning of, this growth period to the point where we are defending our championship from last year. Right. So is rooting for him and his growth kind of like tied to your optimism as a Raptors fan, or is that part of it, or is it kind of like how he plays? Like what makes you kind of love JV?
Well, I think it's just because he started as kind of this, I don't know if he had a lot of hype in him, but I know that because a lot of people don't even know how to pronounce his name, that he's a fairly unknown guy. So that kind of fits in how a lot of great Raptors are, where, it's they're somewhat, we see great potential in them, and then they would develop in front of our eyes, and JV was just that guy.
Do you remember when Charles Barkley couldn't pronounce his name?
Yeah. I think there's a video on YouTube of the evolution of that, where he just, in the beginning he would just absolutely butcher it, and then they would make fun of it, and now I think it's like a little better.
Yeah, it's been like 5 years, but he's come a bit further.
Yeah.
So, as far as like JV's rise, I feel like I got to ask you on behalf of every single JV fan, but do you dislike Dwayne Casey? Do you think Dwayne Casey gave him a fair shake? Most of JV's tenure as a Raptor was under Dwayne Casey. I remember, I was ringing that, that JV gong bell. I was like demanding he play more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I always have JV in my fantasy team, and it's just so frustrating that time. But I think the story of JV's time with the Raptors, pretty much in summary, he's somebody who has a lot of potential that we may have missed out on. And that's mostly because I think when we drafted him, we were expecting to have him develop into almost like maybe a little modeled around Dwight Howard, maybe. But as years gone by, I think the direction of the team went towards more of improved ball movement, three-point shooting, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, Valanciunas got, tied with a lot of these questions of, do we really need what he can provide to the team?
Right. And of course, with the evolution of the league, he's maybe one of the best examples of kind of like struggling to adapt to the speed of the game, but also, still really good. So because he's not one of these players that got phased out, right? Like he's too good for that. So yeah, it's because I remember early in his career, the training staff was getting him to put on weight and put on strength. And then almost like, I forget, I couldn't say what year, but let's say year 4, year 5, it's like a total reverse course. It's like, oh, wait, hold on a second. The Warriors are here. Dude, we need you to lose weight and move faster. So, kind of like caught in the in-between. Although, right. He signed a contract with Memphis. He seems like he's going to be in the league a while. Let me ask you about the Gasol trade. How did that feel? Were you disappointed? Are you disappointed? Do you wish JV was still a Raptor?
I guess my disappointment was more because our last look at JV was when he hurt his thumb.
Yep, Draymond Green.
He couldn't really, prove himself, unfortunately. However, the trade I think was a overall necessity because for what the Raptors are trying to do, Gasol can provide immediately.
Of course, yeah, and it works.
There's years of experience that we can kind of shortcut and get added into our team.
I feel like it's probably hard for you to pin it down to a moment.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite, JV highlight? Do you have a favorite JV, kind of like game? I hope I don't steal this from you, but I feel like for me, the peak of JV excitement was that Brooklyn series, right? Where it's kind of like, the Raptors are back. Masai says, fuck Brooklyn. Everybody's going crazy. Garnett, Pierce is this stacked, bloated team, which, all they ever did was lose to the Heat in the next round, but they did beat us. But those first two games, I remember JV putting up just like ungodly rebounds and points. Like he was like, they were comparing him to like, Tim Duncan's playoff debuts and Jabbar's playoff debuts. And he just really had some big stats. And I think he might have faded as the series went along a little bit, but he really just came out as himself as like this bruiser, tough dude who can get rebounds and dunk the ball. Okay. Sorry. I feel like I asked a question and then I fully answered it myself. How dare I? Do you have a favorite game moment? Anything, JV?
Man, something similar to the playoffs is when he dominated the Cavs.
In the playoffs or in the regular season?
No, in the playoffs. But
right, like when he came back from that injury during the that was the conference finals run, right? Where you hurt his ankle, I think, against Miami. Yeah.
I think it was just that. Like he had a lot of great, spurts of playoff appearances, and then he would get hurt and stuff like that. My favorite moment was his last 2-second dunk against the Bucks.
So happy you said it. Yeah, where he was fouled as well.
Yeah, he was, but I don't think they called it. But
no, it should have been. I think it was a game tying dunk, but it should have been. He should have had the opportunity to win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 minutes here. There's a lot of weird JV stuff. Like I remember, there's the Wasega incident.
That's right. Yeah.
There's the time where there's a video clip of him, dressing up as like a wizard in the Lithuanian league.
Oh yeah, the dunk contest.
Yeah. There's a lot of good, weird JV stuff. Obviously, you have the Masai moment where JV thought he might get traded, and for Andre Drummond, Masai comes up to him and he goes, "You're way better than Drummond," But what's your kind of like lasting, not necessarily like impression with JV as a Raptor, but like what do you think about when you think about JV as a Raptor?
I just honestly, I feel like we may have missed out. I think he's a player who we never got to see his full potential.
Right. So there's like some longing there.
Yeah, and he added that level of toughness. He's a funny guy. So that's kind of what his lasting impression is.
Are you upset he didn't get a ring?
He didn't? I didn't know that. I thought he did.
No, they actually decided that JV and DeLon Wright and CJ Miles were not going to get championship rings.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest.
Yeah, same. Although I get it. I think if you get the ring, you may kind of lose your fire. Maybe this is something that
Well, yeah, some players were saying that they want to be more responsible for the ring, but I feel like JV was such a culture builder, and he also, he's just like a big part of the Raptors and played a lot of deep playoff runs for us, and I think he was going to be a big part of that run. But Randall, we're just about up for time here. All
right,
buzzer thing's about to go off. Here we go.
Oh, there's a buzzer.
That's my phone.
I think before we go, I think we have to mention the curse, the GoDaddy curse that he started. It's pretty
Okay,
much
thank
the
you.
beginning of it.
I knew there was going to be JV stuff we missed. So please hit people with the GoDaddy curse if they've never heard of it. Tell them about it and tell them why JV is kind of like the beginning of it.
Yeah, no. So the GoDaddy commercial ads made a partnership with the Raptors, and their first featured player was Jonas Valanciunas. I think it got aired at the end, almost the end of the season, and obviously nobody knew that there was a curse if it's the first one. But JV pretty much disappeared come playoff time, and then it just continued on with the next players. I think Patterson and Bebe were
CJ Miles,
Norm, not Delon, right? Yeah, so those guys kind of had some sort of a bad.
But you have to tell people what his product was.
Yes, so JV's product was called the Itty Bitty Baller. It's a mini act, like a figure of him.
Yeah, there's figurines of him.
Yeah,
just in various poses, but like, and the idea is that he was like making these and painting them.
Yeah.
It was all around just a bit nonsensical, because like I bet you people bought them, right?
I don't think it's true, because when the website was up, I remember I tried to order, but it didn't go through anywhere.
Wait, am I so dumb that I'm now just realizing on my own podcast that this was a commercial and it wasn't a real product, and I am a commercial actor? Ouch. Honestly, that's a lot of egg on my face. I don't know what to say. I'm going to look into that, and I will apologize to the listeners of the podcast next week.
All I know is I tried buying the JV riding an actual Raptor figure, and I think it was like $80 listed in the website, but the site didn't go anywhere.
So it is real.
The website is real. You click on it, I don't think it goes anywhere.
Okay, you know what? We're going to have to make a new podcast, me and you, Randall, where we basically just do our own reply all version of trying to figure out what the hell happened with Itty Bitty Ballers, specifically riding the Raptor. JV riding the Raptor, we need to know if that's real or if it's a Berenstein scenario.
That's right.
Okay, well, yeah, that's it for JV, and thanks for joining the podcast, Randall. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Stay safe.
I will, and yeah, any message to the listeners of the podcast about the world and or JV?
Well, just everybody stay safe. Pretty much it. Wash your hands.
That includes you, JV. Stay safe. Okay, I'm here with guest number 3. She is amazing. She's done this podcast a bunch of times. She recently covered the Raptors for the Raptors. So yeah, I feel like I should say that because yeah. But yeah, she's incredible. You should know her. You should love her. If you don't, then I mean, go to hell, right? But give it up at home for Katie Heindl. By the way, Katie, I'm sorry, it's the third time I've done that this podcast. It's such a fake out because there's no music, because what we're doing is having the music in between.
Okay. Hello. Hi. That's okay. I like that intro a lot.
Thank you. I feel like it was like all my intros are just like pure snakes and ladders. Like there's a lot of good, but it's pretty sloppy. I'm like falling. I'm like that guy, like that winter gif of like the guy who's trying to shovel and he falls down like 200 times. That's me. But at the same time, like
so
it does, and it gets shoveled. You know what I mean? The snow moves.
Gets done, and it's a roller coaster ride. Hey, thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
love to be on.
You're amazing. I'm happy to have you back. I feel like, you know, we're all going through a lot, so let's just jump into Raptors talk. Who is your favorite Raptor?
My favorite Raptor is Kyle Lowry.
Yay! Sorry, I don't know why. I didn't say yay for anyone else's, but I guess I feel like you're the only current Raptor, and Kyle is just amazing to talk about all the time. So I'll let you start.
Okay. I mean, as you said, like he is amazing to talk about all the time. I feel like as a writer, like I've written about him a lot, like long form feature things, but it's like every time I do, then there's just like something else you could write about. So I think for me, there's something about Kyle Lowry where I always feel like I'm chasing the ability to try and like get all of it down and like get all of it. I don't know, like
right
to I see. I even talking about him.
It's like there's always more with him.
He can take multitudes, right? So I think, like for me, when I think of, it's not just this. It's not like just this year, but when I trace back Lowry and like why he for me, like there's other players that like are on this team, like this iteration of the team this year, and in recent years that I love, like very personally, but I wouldn't, put that on anyone else for this. But like,
right.
To me, Kyle Lowry is like, he's a conduit in which every era of this team and its last iterations, and I would say probably its most important and memorable iterations have flowed through. So, like he's formed all of those, right? He's like kind of been the framework in which to view the franchise. And we've witnessed like his real-time evolution and growth, which I think is kind of a rare thing with, even if it's a franchise player, with any player, just because of like, yeah, of course, if players move, then you don't get to see that at all. And then sometimes the franchise sometimes oversteps the player. So it's like it seems like the franchise is influencing that evolution and growth of that player. But Lowry has been so singular.
Yeah, he's like, you always feel that tug of war with Kyle. Like it's like he's a Raptor, but like it was a mixture. It's a kind of like a trust acceptance continuum with him, Dwayne, and Masai. It's super fascinating. Like, sorry.
And no, and it's like been a symbiotic relationship. And I think in some cases it's worked better than others. Like obviously he had his struggles, I think a little bit with Casey, but like in a lot of ways it helped him to come full circle around and like be this kind of player that now is like Nick Nurse like loves so much and like everyone else loves so much. But I mean, I think for us as fans, whatever level of fan you are, like you've kind of seen him go from outlier, like when he arrived, to like he was almost written off, right? Like they tried to trade him.
Oh my God. And he backed up for Jose, just like he backed up for Conley, and he lost out to Dragic in Houston, and it was like another part of the Kyle Lowry story. We witnessed like an undoing of sorts.
Yeah. And I think like he didn't want to be here. He had like a bad reputation. And then, to see him go from that to choose, like to make this choice to be here and to become this kind of like unpredictable, super fun to watch, at times like a bit unhinged and like not always the greatest, but like that duo of him and DeRozan, and then to see them kind of start growing together on this straight line, then like the heartbreak, of course, of DeRozan leaving,
the brotherhood and the heartbreak,
like tearing them apart.
Ouch.
And then very much the question of like, well, what happens to Lowry now? Because like we hadn't known him without DeMar. But then
I was so worried, and I feel like a lot of people weren't worried at all. And I was like, you don't understand, Kyle. Like this is a 6-year build up, this him and DeRozan thing, and to just assume it was going to work with Leonard and that he wouldn't be mad. I don't know. I was so scared, and I was wrong, I think, but.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's a really good point and I think it's a valid point because the chemistry that like now still fuels the team was created by DeRozan and Lowry together. So I think it was like completely valid to say like, how will that, like, what's the longevity there when you take one of those crucial pieces away? But I think it proves how much they kind of like set up like something that could flourish without one of those huge pieces, like they did the right job. Like they did it. So I think like what I found so interesting after Lowry kind of like worked through the kinks, I think, because there was some growing pains, I think, of playing alongside Kawhi and almost like what he ended up doing was like handing this franchise he'd created kind of out of these like disparate pieces of like nobodies, you know, over to this star who I think as much as they wanted him back, they all probably had the right, like they probably were like, this guy's just one and done, you know?
Yes. Like even him and Siakam seems like the bond is so much tighter than, you know, him and Kawhi.
Mm-hmm. And there's like personal reasons of like Kawhi, just like how he gets along with anybody.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I think what we saw then of Lowry was like this, like he became a leader in a different way we'd never seen before, because he kind of became like this steady co-pilot. He took a back seat. He stepped into this role of like distributor, playmaker. He wasn't in the spotlight anymore, which I was like, is he going to be okay with that? You know, but he was, and like, he kind of put his head down and got to work and like realized, I think that was his one opportunity to like get the title, and he did it. And then after that, like, he kind of crested in this way, but I was very curious to see how he'd come back this year. And I've written about it, but I think, you know, in all those roles, we saw him alongside someone. But this is the first year we've seen him solo as a leader. Right. And we've never seen him like do that. Yeah. And like now you see how much of like a beautiful relationship he has with like, not just like the bench mob guys who he kind of like brought up in the team, but like younger and newer guys like Terrence Ross, like guys like Rondé who've like come in, you know, from off their own like pretty interesting careers, but have like fit and melded into the team because of like the way that Kyle's created it. So I think it's like, he's kind of this like now this benevolent like dad figure. Yeah. This year. And
I think he's like a symbol of resilience too, right? Because like the NBA is all about opportunity, and like here's a guy who did it. He made it happen. Like, and he's not LeBron or Kawhi. He's like so much more relatable to these other guys.
Absolutely. And I think he is not that I guess there were some years I think when he took himself pretty seriously, and, you know, he's got like, it's not that he's lost the chip on his shoulder, but he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder for his team. Like he kind of loves them unconditionally. He lets his guard down. He's like kind of embarrassing, like a dad is, you know, when he'll like try and post about them on social media.
I know he's definitely getting more dad like I'm expecting like him to bust out like a big Dwayne Casey suit any day. Like he's just gonna show up and people are gonna be like, why are you wearing that suit from the 80s? And he's gonna be like, it fits.
I look good in this.
Yeah, I look good. Okay, sorry.
No. I think that's it. And I think the only thing I was going to add was like, I know we've all, as fans, we all have varying degrees of like being upset about how the season is either done or still on hiatus and what's going to happen. But like when I think about it personally, like I think about the Raptors, but then I think about it most personally with Lowry. I'm kind of like, I'm most disappointed that whatever is going to happen this season, there was still this big of a disruption, an interruption, that this weird thing that they had created that was working, even though it shouldn't have been working with all the injuries and like getting sidetracked. They're not going to be able to see it through.
Yeah. Kyle's season, you know, I've been watching highlights the past couple of days, and like I watched Siakam's highlights up until this point. They're just wild. Like it's just such an emerging player. But I also watch Kyle's highlights, and it's just a perfect mix of like old man craft and headiness, and also like excellent talent and shooting still. Mm-hmm. And you know, how long can someone hold all those things together at that age? So like, I think he's just going to be such a killer if the playoffs are able to happen. I really believe it, because I feel like he's not going to revert. Like his confidence, like that game 6 in Golden State, I think we're going to see more of that if he gets to play more playoff basketball.
Yeah, and that's something too, like he's never reverted. I didn't even talk about his like on-court growth, but like to me it's all inclusive of everything that I talked about just on this like line. But like the way he's grown and adapted on-court, it's just like he's so smart, and you constantly hear like other coaches, other players just like talk about what a genius, like a basketball genius he is, you know? Mm-hmm. Which is, I've heard that the most this year, Like, I think there's like a lot of reasons why, like the championship, he's leading this team, I think it's just like probably what a lot of people who are in the know have been saying for a long time, but it's felt very like rewarding to hear it so much this year, you know?
The overall Kyle praise has felt nice. Like the charges in the All-Star game, everything this year, it's like, it feels like fans that aren't just Raptors fans, like they're being let in a little bit to like, hey, this guy's charming. Like you probably just think about him as the guy who almost pulled, Jared Allen's arm out of his socket this year. But he's not just that. Like he's the best.
He's all those things, right?
Yeah, he's all those things.
And he's never reverted is a good way to put it, because he's never done that. And then on the personality front, on the playing front, on the relationship front, the franchise front, he's just like always reinventing himself. And he's like never satisfied to just like settle.
Okay, Katie, we got just like 30 seconds left here. This is an insane question because Kyle is like the best Raptor ever. But do you have a favorite, or just let's say just a great moment that comes to mind for Kyle? Because it's too much pressure to have like a favorite. There's like tons.
I have like a heartbreaking moment that I always think about. It's like when he missed the shot in the Nets game in the finals against Paul Pierce. And I think we've talked about this before. Like that to me was like, it still like hurts me to think about it.
It's painful. The Brooklyn series was painful.
I know. But when you look at that and you kind of see like projecting forward what happened and like how he kind of rode that crest that started then, like all the way to now, it's just like, it's another example of like him always playing the long game. But when I think about Kyle more from like game to game, my favorite moments are like, probably this year, my favorite moments were, in the All-Star game when he was like grinning his ass off after taking charges, just like from the floor, like just being sprawled out, like laughing at how much he was getting under LeBron and Harden's skin. And also just like any game when it's like, oh no, I don't know why this is still surprising to us as fans, but we're like, oh no, they're down 20, they're down 30. What are they going to do? And then it's like, oh, there's Lowry. He's going to put the whole game on his back. He's going to turn things around. He's like a little motor.
He is.
He's a rocket engine.
And he also has this like beautiful combination of like arguing, delaying. Like he becomes like a coach and a ref and a player all at the same time. And everyone else is like, just like they can't keep up with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good place to end it. And I'll just say a moment I always think of with Kyle, and maybe I'm getting emotional, but I feel like it relates to what's going on right now. But the way, obviously everyone like it's behind closed doors, but the Masai to Kyle, like tough talk, the journey from that to the very aggressive Masai Kyle hug on the court after they won the championship. To me, it's like I want to hug everyone like that as soon as it's safe, and obviously consensual hugs. I don't want to hurt anyone's neck, but I want to hug everyone like that as soon as it's okay.
I think that will be like the hug scene around the world after all this. I think so.
Yeah, and I hope they
study it closely in the meantime.
Yeah, let's all study that hug, and let's all know that they are the first ones who get to hug after all this.
Yes.
Like it will be like we'll all be watching, and as soon as they hug,
televise it.
Yeah. Katie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there anything you wanna say everyone before we take off?
If you are just so hungry for NBA content, I have a column over at Dime called NBA Self-Isolation Watch. So it's a weekly column where I'm chronicling what players are getting up to in isolation. It's been a lot of fun. It's been anxious and weird and like fun, and like I think that's what we're all up to right now.
Yeah, if anxious and weird isn't your brand, I don't know what to tell you, because like that is the next, I think, foreseeable future. So get into it.
Cool.
But yeah. But thanks so much, Katie. We'll talk soon, and be safe and be well.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Okay, I'm here with a good buddy. He's done the podcast a couple times. We've been friends and been doing comedy together as sketch comedians for years. He writes for Jay and Dan. We were actually just talking about like what they're up to. Maybe he'll plug that when he's done telling me his favorite player. But without further ado, give it up at home as loud as you can for Brendan Halloran.
Oh man, I hear those cheers. They are deafening right now.
Yeah,
people are really giving it up for me right now. It's really great.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I think, sure, some folks are clapping at 7 p.m. for our essential service workers, but I think some people are listening to this podcast, you know, and just like clapping by themselves.
I am honored to be on such a pristine footing as our very valued frontline workers.
Hey man,
hi dude.
I appreciate you. So, but yeah, let's get right to it. Who's your favorite Raptor of all time?
Oh, this is really exciting. It's really exciting to talk about this era of Raptors basketball. My favorite player of all time. I only own one Raptors jersey, and it is a Jose Calderon jersey. Jose Calderon is my favorite Raptor of all time.
I love this so much. Numero ocho, Jose Calderon is your favorite Raptor. He's awesome. A lot of people, awesome. Yeah. I'll let you just go.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I really like this era of these Raptors teams. This is from like 2008 to like, 2011, 2012. Because like this was kind of like when you win a championship, your team has arrived, right? And there's like, when you're taken more seriously, there's like a lack of like presentational bullshit about the team. So like, like our uniform, they look great. And like the presentation in the arena for the player intros and stuff looks great. But this was an era where it was like we weren't quite new, but we hadn't figured anything out yet.
Yes.
So this was like mid bullshit Raptors era.
Yeah.
Like I went back to research
the Joey Graham stuff.
Yeah. Like just players that you're like, oh man, like are we really going nuts for Rasho Nesterovic? You know what I mean? We had like Haiti Turkoglu and he's not trying and stuff. And like even I went back and looked at like I think the 2009 like pregame intros, and they just had like a bunch of the Raptors sitting in do you remember this, sitting in a convertible?
Yes, I do.
And there was a video
driving up and down
all in a convertible.
Young
like
Street, right?
Around, yeah, like it's Entourage or something, right? But it's like, Jamario Moon sitting in a convertible and it's supposed to be cool. And we're like, oh man, but you're like, this isn't like the worst thing. And at the time you were probably not, this isn't super embarrassing, but it's like, it's mid bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And, totally. So this, and this was like the team of my 20s. This was, they were not a great team, but they were good enough that they could still break your heart a little bit. And, I had a favorite player from that era. And like, I'm not a Chris Bosh guy. I always found Chris Bosh to be a little bit hokey. So the next guy I thought was the best was Jose Calderon. I just liked the way that he ran the team. I liked his professionalism. I liked his ability to shoot the three. And then I went back and looked at his stats and I realized they're not great.
Well, it's interesting because he was always like, he was such a serviceable guy, and he kind of like did his job and no more, but he kind of like perfected his job as like a distributor. And he's got some pretty like high water moments, like the gold medal with Spain. Like he was a big part of that team. Oh wait a second, am I messing that up? Spain.
He had a FIBA. I think I looked it up. I think it's like 2 silvers and a bronze, but he won a FIBA World Cup.
Right, that's what it is. Yes, but yeah, like he's performing some pretty like big time scenarios, and like he's been in the playoffs. I always go back to that New Jersey series where Richard Jefferson ripped down the alley-oop pass that Jose threw to Chris Bosh. And it was just like the perfect play, and obviously Richard Jefferson just kind of made a good defensive play, but Jose has a lot of good moments, and like, I think you're right. Like I'm looking at his basketball reference right now. He started a bit slow, and he kind of dwindled off and became a journeyman. But he had some pretty successful years with the Raptors, and some kind of fun stats too. There's the free throw, the season where he almost broke the free throw record. He did break the percentage record, I think.
Yeah, and he blossomed into like this really nice 3-point shooter in an era where that is, it's not the same era that we're playing in now, where you're kind of, a point guard would be expected to be that. But like, like I'm looking at it in 2012, 2013, he shot, 46% on like 4 attempts, which is, pretty good. But then also, like, I'm looking at Jarrett Jack's stats, and they're comparable. And Jarrett Jack is 2 years younger, so maybe Jarrett Jack is a little bit more upside. So it's like, it's one of these weird things where it's like, I don't remember him for like his great plays or leading us to wins or anything like that. I just remember how I felt about it at the time. And I think this is also a product too of just like, because we live in like a, like the media here is really focused on just the players that we have. You don't get like a huge scope. So like you feel like, oh, Jose Calderon's really good because we're talking about him all the time, but we're talking about him all the time because he is the starting point guard too.
Right. Like we're basically having to like kind of like deal with the reality of like, this is our guy. So that's why we're talking about him all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not like, so just like during that era, because like, really into the team at that time, I was like, yeah, Jose Calderon is my guy because it's not going to be Hedo Turkoglu. I can tell you that much.
Oh God, no, it can't be. Do you remember, like, there's a lot of weird stuff with Jose, I feel like bringing up right now. Like, do you remember the odd rumor that he was like had like all this like pig farming wealth and was like a billionaire? And he had to like, this is a couple years ago, and he came out and he's like, guys, like I've made a lot of money. I'm pretty rich, but I'm not a billionaire. And I don't know where this rumor started. No,
I don't. Maybe that was like pre my always online days where I wouldn't have caught that. But like, what's the story? Like he had a pig farm in Spain?
I think, yeah, like I think someone got confused with names or something at some point and just like somehow, was totally like not real and just weird. Like it wasn't like a slanderous story. It was like, did you know that Jose Calderon's actually super rich? Also,
like what a weird thing to do. Like he's already like, I don't know. I don't have his contract status in front of me, but like he made millions of dollars, right? Yeah. Like he made millions of dollars playing basketball. And then people were going like, yeah, but did you know he's got more money than that? And it's like, who cares? He's got a ton of money anyway.
Yeah, he's stinking rich. What about the clapping defense? Did that bother you, or did you find that like to be a charming thing?
I never had a problem with it. I don't have a problem with any of that stuff. I don't have a problem
either. Like I always thought it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I like do whatever you can. Like even in like, do you remember when like this is an NHL thing, but when like Sean Avery was like distracting the goaltenders with a stick by like putting his stick in their face and then waving it back and forth, and everyone was like, "Oh man, you can't do that." I was always like, I don't know, why not? Why can't you do it?
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm a very firm believer in like change the rules. Like I love players that push things, and it's like
definitely. I'm just like just if play everything to your advantage. I don't know. It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's very fun.
Yes. So Jose, like amazing passer, amazing shooter. Were you surprised that I guess not surprised because Kyle had so much time to do it, but I remember when Jose left the Raptors, I genuinely thought that his assist record was safe. He averaged so many assists for so many years that I didn't think Kyle was ever going to get close to him. Or I thought, he might get traded. It was only really in the last, like when Kyle re-signed this new contract where I was like, oh man, if he plays this whole year, he's going to pass him.
Right. Well, like, Calderon played it for us for 8 seasons. And like you said, like no, I didn't really think anyone was going to come along and do that because as you said, I don't think any of us thought Kyle Lowry was going to be around. Like every year it feels like, hey, maybe that was Kyle Lowry's last year. Like even after we won the championship, there was a thought where you go like, well, maybe that was the end of like, maybe they'll trade Kyle Lowry now. Like he's this weird guy who has hung around for how many seasons has he been here now? Has he been here 8 as well?
Yeah, actually got him right here. Kyle's been with us for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like it shouldn't be that surprising too because like Kyle Lowry has played with much better teams than like he's not like Jose Calderon trying to dish the ball to Andrea Bargnani and crossing his fingers.
Yeah, totally. I mean, okay, here's another Jose thing. Did you ever notice that he has to be the best dribbler in the world who doesn't use a crossover? He doesn't put the ball in between his legs ever.
Wait, pardon me?
So he does like complex dribbles and he dribbles behind his back, but the standard crossover, like dribbling it in between your legs, is just not really a Jose move. He just never really did that.
You're saying that he never dribbled. All right, I'm going to even try to Google this right now. For sure, Jose Calderon has tried to dribble the ball between his legs.
Maybe, sorry, I'm not saying he's not tried, but I mean, like, that's not how he rolls. Like, there was times where he would get into trouble, and it's like, man, use your legs, Or like, I remember one time he fell down and continued dribbling. It was like a circus trick.
Yeah, like a very good dribbler, and like, but I think that you can also he's also not fast. But for some reason, I thought when I was younger that he was super fast. Like, I remember going to a Raptor team with my dad and going like, oh man, Jose Calderon's so fast. And now I look at it back and I'm just like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, I didn't know anything back then.
He's legit pretty slow. Like, his foot speed was always bad. But I mean, yeah, I think players that are heady can kind of play in a way that makes you think they're not super slow. Okay, we got 30 seconds here. What do you want to leave everyone thinking about? Obviously during this time, people want to think about numero ocho, Jose Manuel Calderon. People want to think about him. So give us a nice note to end on.
I just want you to think about this era of Raptors basketball, and it was not as good as you remember. Go back. Please do the research. The Jose Calderon, Chris Bosh days, they were not as great as I seem to think that they were at the time. And I think that we should celebrate how far we've come from that time. And we can all have new favorite players, and they can all be better than the players that I like the best.
Wow, that is such a perfect circle, because we started with Damon Stoudemire. Then we did JV and Kyle, who's the best player ever, on to Jose, which is kind of like a perfect ending note. Like, guess what? Things aren't perfect, so you should appreciate when they're really, really great.
Yeah, I didn't say he was the best player. I just said that he was my favorite. Yeah,
I love how you're the only person who was like, you know what? And when I looked up his stats, yikes!
I was like, what do you mean he averaged 10 points for his career? Like, no, I'm talking about Jose Calderon. Surely the internet is wrong.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, Brendo, I said I'd kind of leave the floor to you a little bit to talk about Jay and Dan, but feel free to talk about that or whatever else you want. Like, is there anything people should check out?
Hey, listen, if you're a Jay and Dan fan, we're still making content. We're still doing stuff. We're doing mini episodes that are appearing on the TSN website and all of our social platforms, and just trying to do fun stuff while we're all stuck at home. So if you're bored, please check it out.
Hell yeah. Cool, dude. Well, yeah, thanks so much for joining the pod, and we'll talk soon. Be safe.
All right. Thanks for having me.
It's the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball Podcast.